Hi, welcome to a special edition of Education Matters. Searching for the new normal in public education. We're looking at the reopening plans for our school districts in New Jersey. Some in September, I guess. With me is Dr. Gerard Crisonino, who is the Director of Special Education at Jersey City Public Schools, and also a school board member in Berkeley Heights in Union County. So we'll be talking to Jerry about this. Welcome, Jerry. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me back, Ray. It's a pleasure to see you, and I hope everybody's healthy out there and navigating this crazy situation we're in.
Yeah, we did a podcast a while ago about the difficulties then with the schools closing. So from your perspective, what did you do over the summer to help look at your students and evaluate where they are?
So let me just first say, it's not easier now than it was in March. And I know we're all feeling challenged. A lot of my colleagues out there, both on the board and in special education. What we've done is we've continued over the summer, obviously, to offer our extended school year programs for our students. That's IEP driven. And we did that remote, obviously, and that seemed to go very well. And then we offered additional programs to not only special needs students, but students at risk. Because students at risk are the population that many of us forget. Because special education, there's a lot of attention on them. There's a lot of attention naturally on general ed students. But it's those students that are on the cusp that are struggling but are not yet identified for special education that really need the extra support. So we developed programs that for those students, and we ran them for a month, and they were very successful. A lot of them are project-based learning because we find that a lot of students, not only is it a fun way to learn, but a lot of students that are having some challenges in learning learn better that way. So we try to offer programs to get our students ready to return in September. At that time, we thought that we would all be going back in September. And we're trying to assess where they were. And obviously, when we start back in September, even if the boards choose to be remote, we are going to have to do a great deal of concentration on looking at the regression of the students. And I know our teachers are up to that, and they will be using different data to make those decisions and really finding out where our students are, because for probably all of them, they haven't been in school, a traditional school, for 6 months. So that's going to be a key part of how we all open up our school districts, remote or in person.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult situation. Now, I know districts will have the option now, which changed from when we first did this.
Right.
So let's look at the in-person. I think Berkeley Heights might be looking at that, or some version of the in-person. Right. Social distancing makes this a little hard with the PPEs and the 6 feet away. How do you think special education is addressing, we can address that?
So I think it's actually more complicated for special education than for general education. A lot of our students have some challenges in understanding social distancing guidelines, or will have challenges. In addition to wearing a mask. I mean, masks are not comfortable for anybody to wear. And even your students who are in advanced proficiency courses will have issues. But for special education students, many of them will not be able to wear masks. So we have to figure out things to do, like, do we put face shields, which might be a little more comfortable for the students? Do we put plexiglass dividers in the classrooms? Obviously, we have to social distance the seats. A lot is going to be the class rules. Every class has rules when you begin a school year, obviously, that we drill into the students. It's going to be even different because the rules are going to have to be that you can't approach the teacher. The teacher may not be able to come up to the student and give them really a one-to-one assistance. It might have to be at that distance. So there's a lot of concerns that we're going to have to look in. Many of them will translate to general ed too, but for special ed, it's really the fact that the ability to understand social distancing for some of our more challenged student populations will be very difficult. And so it's really working with the teacher, with the case manager, and the parents. I recommended a while back that parents start making sure their kids are accustomed to wearing masks, because you can't have one of the first times you come in a school and say, right now you're putting this on for 4 hours, and they've only had it on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So we really have to get used to that. So it's a lot of work, a lot of prep work, but in education in New Jersey, we all pull it off. From the board down to the paraprofessionals, we all pull it off somehow, and we will. It's just a lot of planning, and that's what the process we're in now.
I just want a quick follow-up on one of the things you said, and this is probably true in the remote. It might be a little individualized. Some can wear face masks. Some will need something else, the face shield. The role of the parent is probably going to be pretty crucial in all of this as we move forward. Maybe it's always been important, but there are going to be partners in this.
Yeah, and they have to be partners, because many of our students are not going to have the capacity to sit in front of a computer for hours at a time and fully attend. We're going to have the parents be able to redirect them during the time, understand when they need a break, support what's going on. In Jersey City, we are doing a lot of parent education. We have a whole parent website. We are putting resources out there. And one thing we are cognizant of, not only will our students need mental health support, and that could be just anything, just a little encouragement at times, but something really, but our parents do too. Because for some of these parents, they're working in very challenging situations that normally will stress many of us. And they're really doing a great job. And I have a lot of respect for a parent with a student with disability. And now we're saying you're going to have that child all day if we're doing remote instruction. And so we have to be mindful of how can a school district help that parent? How can we make it a little more comfortable? We have yoga things parents can do at home. We have relaxations, because they have to take care of themselves too. They can't help their child if they're overwhelmed. So we have to really now, to me, school districts are really much more community-centric. How do we help everybody here? The teachers, we have to keep our teachers in the right frame of reference, because it's very challenging for everybody, not only the students.
Yeah, that goes without saying, I think. So what's also, besides the parent and the communication with the parent, which I think is going to be important for all aspects of education as we move forward, is there anything else in virtual education that you can look to improve as we go forward?
Well, I think the instruction always needs to be improved. I mean, most districts, I believe, have done a very good job. But remember, we were thrown into this in March 17th, and we were told the whole way of you're going to teach is now changed. And I think overall, people have done a very good job. But I think you are going to have to continue doing professional development. And I think as a role, the role of the board is to make sure those resources, not only financial resources, but staff resources, is available to do professional development. Because teachers always have to hone their skills. We have to find new ways to deliver instruction in a palatable way for our students. And also look at the roles of different people. Paraprofessionals, which we have in special education, serve a very important role in the brick and mortar delivery of services. They obviously will do so in remote. We have to make sure their roles are defined and really utilize them to their capacity, which we've done well in Jersey City, but there's always the challenges. We have to make sure they're comfortable and with what they're doing, because they need to be as comfortable with the teacher in the delivery of remote instruction. So it's a lot of professional development, and it has to be ongoing. It can't be we opened up the school district in September, say September 10th, and then, now you're doing it. It has to be continual PD and looking at new ways of developing services. And I think that, so it's going to be a challenge. But that's going to be the key, is just really making resources available as a board member to guarantee that your teachers have the tools necessary so they can do what we know they want to do.
So you are a school board member, as I said before. what do you see, and you kind of alluded to it, making sure that the resources are there for their staff. What other questions should a board member be asking through this?
Right. I think a board member, I mean, you don't go on to a Board of Education unless you really have a passion for children and for education. I've been a board member in Berkeley Heights for 16 years, and I loved every minute of it. Well, except sometimes the parents that get up and, it's hard to please. But other than that, I've loved every minute of it. But a board member really needs to make sure they support the superintendent and his or her administration. Now, if you can't do that, then you have to realize as a board member, do we have the right person in charge? I would hope that's a conversation our boards have been having all along. But if you do, and you have the person that you believe is the educational leader, then we have to let them do their job. And they can't do their job unless we give them the resources. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be asking questions. And I think as a board, there's a lot of questions we have to ask. We have to ask, for instance, where are we with transportation? Obviously, we have to social distance on a bus. Special educations, many of them students get transported. We have to know, where are we with getting those buses ready? Because at some point, we're going back to to brick and mortar. Where are we with that? What about our added district schools? Added district schools can opt to remain fully in brick and mortar if they want, even if a district opts to go remote. And we still have the responsibility to transport that student to that added district program. So we have to know, what is the added district schools doing? Now, I'm sure your directors of special education are doing that. But I think it's important for a board member to say, where are we with all those? Are we ready to transport our kids if that happens? Do we have enough devices? I know many of us have been ordering devices. There is a backlog of devices. Thankfully, the districts I'm involved in ordered remote devices early, so we really don't have that issue. But there are some districts, and you read it in the paper, that are having some challenges. Board members need to know, and need to know, not only do we have enough now, but what about the students moving in? If we have students moving in the middle of the year because people are still moving during the pandemic, do we have devices for those students because they have to hit the ground running? So I think as a board member, it's continuing to be a partner with your superintendent, but really being involved and understand, because our neighbors are asking us questions. And while we don't administrate the schools, and we have to, when we should at least, refer them to the superintendent for questions, I think it's important for us to take the questions they have and bring them back to the superintendent. And say to him and her, look, the community is a little concerned about this. They're concerned, are we ready for remote instruction? Do we beef it up? Is it really better than it was because some people had challenges? And so I think those are all the discussions at our board members and our board meetings and committee meetings we should be having. And we need to be fully aware, even more than ever, on what's going on, and making sure also our plan to return to brick and mortar is solid. Because at some point, I would hope that, tomorrow somebody would come back and say, okay, this pandemic's gone and we can all go back. Unlikely, but we had to be ready on the dime to be able to just turn around and say, hey, we're ready to go back. And so board members have to know that. So I think it's a lot of communication there.
I agree. And I would also add that I think it's important to be informed so that you can show support. When you get those questions, say, we went through these plans.
Yep.
If you're not informed, then you can't do that.
That's right.
I'd like to thank Dr. Gerard Crisonino, the Director of Special Education at Jersey City and a school board member in Berkeley Heights, for his insight on how we can address special education during this pandemic. I hope you found this video very informative. Thank you.